Okay, cool. So, hey everyone, thanks for taking the time to join our webinar today. My name is Emily. I'm one of the business development managers here at Creditor Watch. So I'll be your host for today. And I'm also joined by Taylor Neverson, one of the senior business development managers here at Creditor Watch.
Hi, everyone.
So before we get started, I'd just like to cover off some housekeeping. So the session is going to be recorded and it will be made available for you to rewatch after today as well. If you have any questions throughout the session, please send them through to the question box. We'll try to address them during the session. However, we will reach out to you afterwards to answer it as well. We've also got 2 polls throughout the session today. We're really keen to hear from you and make sure we're touching on all the things that are going to be most important. So I really encourage you guys to answer those and get involved. So today we'll be starting off with a brief introduction on who Creditor Watch is. We'll then cover off onboarding challenges that continue to exist, why best practice onboarding is non-negotiable, and finally wrap up the session by giving you an insight into what best practice onboarding does look like. So for those of you who are not familiar with Creditor Watch, we're a leading commercial credit bureau and technology company specializing in commercial credit risk solutions. We take enormous pride in taking care of our customers and enabling them with the best tools and solutions to simply get on with business and trade really confidently. So we started out as a commercial credit bureau just 13 years ago, and we've really rapidly expanded our offering to help businesses just like yours better manage their credit risk throughout every stage of customer relationship. So whether that be onboarding a new customer really quickly, keeping up to date with changing credit risk levels throughout your customer relationship, or maximizing cash flow by automating collections, Creditor Watch's software, data, and insight solutions help businesses like yours manage risk in an efficient and structured way so you can protect and grow your business. Now I'd like to pass over and introduce Taylor. Taylor, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at Creditor Watch?
Yeah, no worries at all. Thanks, Emily. And hi, everyone. Great to see so many of you here today. And thanks for taking the time to jump on. My name's Taylor, and I'm one of our senior BDMs here at Creditor Watch. My role really is to work closely with our clients to understand how they can best build out processes that enables them to manage risk and trade confidently with their clients. One of the really exciting things about Creditor Watch is that we're lucky enough to have the opportunity to work with businesses across a whole host of different industries, whether that's construction, logistics, food and beverage, and pretty much everything in between. It gives us a really exciting opportunity to kind of listen and understand what are some of the common business problems that businesses are facing when onboarding or working with customers. And where we thought we'd start today is with a quick poll to kind of understand and gauge where you feel like your processes are today. How confident you feel about some of those processes. So hopefully if technology's served us okay, you should have had a poll pop up on your screen asking just how confident you are with your process today. The first option there may be not confident yet, still working on things, not really sure what we're doing, bit of an unstructured process. Maybe the second piece is we're still figuring it out. We've got a bit of a ways to go. We like some of the things we do, I think there's room for improvement. Or we're the cream of the crop, we've nailed it, don't see any risk, happy with everything we do today. Super keen to hear from you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Taylor. Just while a few of you are answering that, so onboarding is really the first opportunity for most businesses to set out a strong first impression with their customers by delivering a really quick and easy experience. Protecting your assets and securing interest as soon as you onboard customers is so crucial in reducing risk later down the track. Really, it's the first critical step in an end-to-end credit risk management process. And in today's session, we'll be covering off how you can deliver a really seamless experience, assess and risk and onboard your customers really quickly. So we'll just share the poll results on the screen here. So looks like we've got a little bit of a mixed bag, which is not uncommon when we're speaking to businesses on a day-to-day basis. It does seem like few people have some room for improvement, but also there are some people out there who do feel like they've got a good process.
I think that's a really interesting kind of point of conversation just to even start, Emily, where often when we're having these conversations, we're not starting from ground zero. Often businesses who've been operating for quite some time do have some form of process in place, but there's often ways that our clients feel like they can do better, whether that's speeding up the process, reducing risk, or whatever the case may be. So I think that really resonates with kind of some of the stories we hear from our clients in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Now, just before we kind of get into what best practice looks like, I think it's important to kind of take a step back and set the scene a little bit to understand kind of why it's important for us to be having this conversation in the first place. And I think what comes to mind are maybe two really key points that everyone's going to resonate with. And I think that first one is the current macro environment, the environment that we're all operating in and challenging with. The second piece is how the expectations of our customers have changed over the last 12 to 24 months, particularly post-COVID, and how they want to trade and how they want to do business with us. Now, not to kind of do death by stats to kind of start the conversation here, but from a macro perspective, every month Creditor Watch releases a business risk index, and I strongly encourage people to jump on our website, go seek that out. It can be really informative to kind of understand the state of play across the B2B landscape. But when I was reading through it, there's kind of three key stats that really jumped out at me. In the last 3 months alone, nearly 5,000 businesses have gone insolvent, shut down, stopped trading. In the last 12 months, the ATO's lodged nearly 30,000 tax defaults across Australian entities. That's sole traders, companies, partnerships, trusts. And when we look at the default numbers, so payment defaults, clients lodging defaults on our platform, when we compare the number of defaults that were lodged this September compared to the same time last September, the volume's nearly doubled. So I don't say that to scare you, but it really highlights how important it is to be having this conversation and understanding the types of customers we're engaging in onboarding right up front. The second piece is how we engage with customers. Gone are the days people are happy to go to their computer, print off a form, fill it in, find all the information, spend time working through it, scanning it, sending it back, going back and forth. It's a cumbersome process. Customers expect us to be able to make it easy for them, to operate digitally, to make it accessible. And I think these two things in contrast really kind of come to a head, which is how can we make it easy for clients to do business with us while also managing our risk at the same time in quite a risky environment. What's on the screen to a lot of you probably isn't foreign. It's the current process that Emily and I have conversations about probably the most. And what it typically looks like is a largely manual process with a lot of back and forth. It's not linear. Often we're sending out PDF forms to clients. We're expecting them to print it, fill it in, send it back. They come back incomplete. Sales is rushing it. Our accounts team have to go and chase them, try and get some of that additional information back. Then we have to do some of those reference checks which can take time. Even as I'm talking through it, what we can feel is it's a very long, slow, hard process, and it doesn't really need to be that way. How can we build out better processes that streamline this, reduce the time it takes, but also get better outcomes both for your business, but also the customers you're working with as well?
Yeah, and to add to that, Taylor, another really common problem we hear is that the manual process is cumbersome and it's long, which can lead to unhappy customers. You may lose customers to your competitors if your process is really drawn out, as really they just prefer to work with businesses that can fulfill their needs really quickly.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And that's probably the third key piece there, which is the balance of speed and being able to turn around and meeting client expectations. I mean, at the moment, I'm going through the process of getting a mortgage, and I had one mortgage broker who was saying, you have to come in and do everything physically. It's the only way to do it. And then I had another guy who made it really easy for me to work through their process. Everything was digital. I could do it all over Teams and digitally. I naturally went with that one because it was less onerous on me, and it's something that I could work through quite quickly and not have to change my day or what I had on to kind of meet their needs. I think it's a great point.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just the expectation day and age. So we've talked about what the current process is look a little bit like now. So what we're going to do now is take a look at what best practice is, also how you can protect your business while also prioritizing customer experience. So Taylor, what are some of the non-negotiables that businesses shouldn't look over?
Yeah, I think we have a bit of a lag in the slide transition there, but as we're kind of waiting for that to come through, at a high level, and something you'll probably realize quite quickly is I like doing things in threes, so that's going to be a common theme throughout. But I think, again, we can kind of break it down to those three key areas. The first piece is we want to make sure we're meeting the expectations of our customers. Onboarding is our first opportunity to make a strong first impression with a customer. We want to make sure that process is easy, it's smooth, and that they want to do business with us. The second piece is you must be able to easily assess and manage risk to make sure the customers that we're onboarding are the types of customers we want to work with. I mentioned some of those stats a second ago, and I think this is a really critical point, particularly in the current environment. And that third piece, that little anecdote that I kind of just gave then about my mortgage being a bit of a pain, but I'm sure we can all resonate with that, is quick approvals. How can we work through those first 2 points without sacrificing the third piece, which is we want to make it as easy as possible for our accounts teams to approve and process applications, and we want to make it as quick as possible for our clients to be able to start doing business with us as well. So we'll kind of dive a little bit deeper into each of these three shortly. But before we kind of do that, we're going to go straight back into another poll. I know we just finished the last one, but a bit more fun for everyone. What we're keen to kind of understand and hear from you guys is, what's your biggest challenge when onboarding new customers? Is it that upfront process where capturing the customer data takes too long? It's very manual. Is there a lot of back and forth involved? Is it the middle piece where it's hard to get enough information to be able to understand and manage your risk? Trade references are getting harder to get, they're taking longer, they're typically a bit biased and unreliable. Or is it the last piece where customers want to be able to do business with you faster and your current processes kind of don't allow that? Now, I'm mindful we are pigeonholing kind of three key points there. If there's any other key pain points that you're feeling in your process that kind of don't fall into one of those three, feel free to put it in the question section. We'd love to kind of hear and put it in your words what some of those key challenges might be.
Absolutely. Just while we're giving everyone a couple of minutes to do the poll. Sorry, I think we have a little bit of a lag here. So we've just had a question come through here, which is a really good point. So what protection is there for privacy of information? So sensitive data can actually be encrypted, so it's really safe and secure within the Creditor Watch portal.
And I think it's a really good point, particularly with some of the data we're capturing. Often businesses try and take it upon themselves to have those security standards within their own systems, but it can be quite onerous. So having a platform that has those security standards built in to hold and capture a lot of that information can be a really easy and effective way to kind of build out those processes without having to do it all yourself from scratch.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So we'll just pop up some of those poll results now.
That's really interesting. My money at the start was actually on the first one. So it's interesting to see that kind of in the current environment, feeling like we have enough information to make that assessment and kind of understand what we're getting into. That's really interesting. Maybe we spend a bit more time when we get to that point talking through it as well, Emily.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Cool, awesome. So I'll pass over to you here, Taylor, for best practice onboarding.
Yeah, perfect. So we'll break those 3 points down a little bit further now and kind of call out some of the non-negotiables that underlie them. If we start with customer expectations, I think this is a very bare minimum. We want clients who are dealing with us to have a good experience. I think that comes as a given. And today, customers, they're digitally native. They expect to have seamless experiences where they can apply from anywhere. Lots of business owners, directors, they're busy people. They're in and out of the office. Often they're doing the job. They're in the shop. They're in the restaurant. They're on the tools. They're out visiting clients, whatever the case may be. So having technology that enables businesses to be able to complete forms from wherever they are on whatever device, whether that's being mobile friendly or mobile compatible, or being able to get in front of our computer and do it as quickly as possible as well. Ultimately, what we're trying to drive here is ease of use.
Yeah, exactly. Look, you want your customers to be able to complete your forms as quickly as possible, just so they can start doing with you business with you as soon as possible, you know, before they forget, become too busy, and, you know, life things come up.
And I think that ties into the second piece there, which is smart form capability. And that can come in a bunch of different shapes and sizes, but just a couple of really easy, quick wins. Having digital e-signatures, not requiring someone to print it out, send it back. I know we partner with Anature as our e-signature partner of choice. It makes it a really accessible way for people to work through that process quickly and for you to make sure you're capturing the necessary information up front to make that credit application binding as well. The other piece that kind of ties nicely into that is autofill capability. Often businesses won't have all their ABN, their business details handy when you want them to. So having autofill capability like we have in Apply Easy that integrates with ASIC, integrates with ABR, so that as they start filling in some of the information, it autofills the remaining fields for you. I know a lot of the customers I talk to, particularly populating the director's information in the first instance to make sure they're capturing the right person who's signing up front, is something that really saves a lot of back and forth with the sales team, with the customer, to make sure we are getting the accurate information up front.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and something we hear quite often is, you know, the sales team aren't always getting all of the correct information. So something like this just means there's no back and forth between, you know, the finance and the credit function, making sure you have all the correct information. It's all there from the get-go. But yeah, look, we touched on this earlier. You know, the goal is to just create as easy and smooth experience for customers as possible. Like, if the process is too cumbersome, you just risk them dropping out and going elsewhere. While you're applying for mortgages, Taylor, I'm online shopping, and, you know, last week I found what I wanted, added it to the cart, and then, you know, I got to the checkout. They wanted me to create an account. You know, there were so many steps. I had to fill in a bunch of different areas, and I just ended up abandoning the cart and went to another business's site where they just allowed me to check out in seconds. And, you know, it just reminds me, like, if we don't make things easy, people will just go elsewhere. A smooth experience is really the difference between winning a customer or losing them.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the nuts and the bolts of it, right? If you have competitors in your space who are largely providing a similar service, but making it easier for customers to do business with them, they're ultimately going to win out. Businesses are going to choose to trade with them, and you're going to lose revenue. So when we talk about non-negotiables, yes, some of these are nice to haves, like some of the e-signatures, but ultimately it does drive top line revenue and avoids churned customers who go to competitors as well. The last piece we'll touch on there quickly, custom branding. Naturally, the front we put on, the experience we give to our customers, we want to match our branding, how we see ourselves, with a certain level of professionalism there as well, to give customers confidence that we are the right business to be trading with, and to set that expectation up front.
Yeah, absolutely. We've just had a question come through. Do applicants need to set up an account with CreditorWatch to use the application form? No. Really easy for them to just apply online.
They can if they want to, though. I have lots of current customers who don't currently have the application, who go through that process, pick up the phone and call me and say, Taylor, that was great. It's so easy to do. I'm like, oh, maybe I called you sooner. That's probably not anything. Perfect. So, I mean, the next non-negotiable we'll dig a bit deeper into is assessing and mitigating risk. And I think it's important we do spend a bit of time here, kind of given that last poll that this was the piece that jumped off the page. And I think what's really going to resonate with a lot of clients in particular is the due diligence checks. I think for the longest time, businesses have really relied on trade references or self-submitted information from customers as kind of the source of truth or how they assess risk. But I feel within our customer base, we felt a massive shift in the level of confidence associated with some of this information. And that's kind of where we start to play a bit of a role in helping our customers understand who they're dealing with, what their trading history looks like. We encourage our customers to use our comprehensive credit reports, which integrate with ASIC and ABR and ATO information to give that full picture of a business. That marries in with cross-directorship information, so you can see how directors have been trading across their other businesses previously as well. but then also real-time information like payment data to see how they're paying other suppliers, unbiased, not relying on self-submitted references. Or even something more critical like court actions and payment defaults as well, which are a key warning signs. I think really what we're trying to get here from a due diligence perspective is a full picture of how a business is trading. And there are better ways out there than trade references. They have their place, don't get me wrong, but how can we give you additional information to make more informed decisions about who are the businesses we're working with? To kind of highlight why this is important, our data team do a great job of pulling some stats together. And at the start of the conversation, I mentioned that the ATO's lodged about 30,000 defaults in the last 12 months. What we're seeing from some historical analysis, and it's a small sample size at the moment, but it's pretty telling, is that about a third of those businesses that do have a payment default from the ATO, and to be clear, that means the amount's more than $100,000 and they're not currently in a payment arrangement. We see about a third of them go into insolvency within 6 to 12 months. So if you're onboarding a customer that has a tax default, there's a fair chance that the life cycle of that customer is not going to be more than 6 months. So you got to ask yourself, is this information we want to capture up front that we're not going to get through a trade reference check? Or is it something we're happy to turn a blind eye to and run the risk of losing that money in a pretty short time? The second piece here, and I could talk about PPSR for an hour by itself, so I won't, but I think it's just really important that if PPSR is something that we are working through the process of, having a platform that makes it easy for you to lodge that upfront. With Apply Easy, it takes about 2 minutes. It's super streamlined. So that if a business does go into administration, you have all the necessary securities in place to protect your business from losing money. If it's not done upfront, often it does go by the wayside or it's lodged incorrectly. So ultimately, we want to make sure it's done right the first time upfront to protect your business. The final piece here, and I think this is probably the one piece that most businesses we're having an initial conversation with aren't doing, to be fair, which is how they can monitor risk ongoing. Upfront checks are great, but it shouldn't just be a point in time exercise. Once you've been trading with the business for 2-3 months, their circumstances can change. The environment's changing so quickly. So it's really, really important that we're actually monitoring that risk ongoing for any changes in that credit profile. About 8 out of 10 businesses that go under show critical warning signs between 3 and 6 months prior to going under. So if that's information that's available and if that's information that you can get, you can start changing how you're trading with them, so you can reduce your exposure and mitigate that risk ongoing, not just upfront as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I really think we can't stress that point enough. You know, due diligence isn't just a one-off procedure when you onboard a customer. Once onboarded, you need to be keeping tabs on your customers by monitoring them, you know, allowing you to receive any changes that do occur, you know, things like payment defaults, court actions, ATO defaults. You know, 9 out of 10 times your customers aren't going to call you up and tell you about these things. So by keeping an eye out for those early warning signs, you know, it's crucial so you can take action to protect the business from risky entities and bad debtors. I just want to touch on another question we've just had here. So we've got a couple of questions about the legalities of e-signatures. We actually have an entire blog written by Natalie Ledlin, who's a lawyer that we work really closely with here at Creditor Watch, which we can share after this webinar.
Just before you go to the next slide, you may have already, but there's a bit of a lag. I'll just circle back, and I think an anecdote that I often get from clients is, would you just give your next door neighbor $50,000 without doing any checks on their financial credit? I think often we can kind of overlook the sums of money that we're often talking about because it's in the course of doing business. It's goods that we're sending out after the fact. But I think to me, the concept of just giving someone money without doing the appropriate checks or due diligence is just crazy to me. And the amount of businesses that we have conversations with that are barely getting T's and C's signed before trading with a particular client, or just signing on to a subcontractor agreement with a head contractor, you're not getting the necessary protections in place to kind of secure yourself if the business ultimately does go under. So I just sort of wanted to stress that point a little bit more as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great point, Taylor.
The final non-negotiable that we're going to talk about is quick approvals. And I think it's something that we should just stress. Speed doesn't need to be at the detriment of quality. I think think that's something that's often a misconception. Having quick approvals doesn't mean we're skipping through the process. What it means is we're putting processes or technology in place that enable us to work through these things as quickly and streamlined as possible. When we kind of think about this, and I mean, I think the slide says automate about 5 times, and I think automate is a word that can be a little bit overused. But the idea that we're kind of talking about here isn't automate, automate, automate. It's if there's an opportunity to reduce manual work or find a quicker way to do something leveraging technology, it's ultimately a better outcome for you, but also the customer as well, because they can get up and running and trading with you quicker. And there's some really easy ways we can do this. I mean, having an application management tool that helps you manage and process new applications, automating your credit checking process and having automated decisioning once an application is submitted through to you, or even just basic workflows like sending reminder notices to help clients continue to work through that funnel, or sending automatic welcome emails once you've approved an application within the portal. Ultimately, what we're trying to drive here is how can we, 1, spend less time on low value activities, and 2, how can we move a prospective client through our approval process as quickly as possible so we can start driving revenue from them. Pretty simple.
For sure. Could you elaborate, Taylor, what does application management look like for users?
Yeah, I think application management can be a bit misinterpreted. Ultimately, what we're looking at trying to do here is get a central place where admin teams, accounts teams, sales teams can collaborate to manage, to keep an eye on all applications as they come through, to have all of our credit checking in one place, to have all of our application responses in one place, to have our digital signature in one place, so that once we get in there, we have all the information we need to be able to make that decision as quickly as possible, while also having workflows in place to streamline some of that stuff so that we aren't spending time sending manual emails or having to pick up the phone and calling the client. We can do a lot of it from within the same application management tool to drive some of those efficiencies.
Perfect. So, like, if we look back at the complicated onboarding process we discussed at the beginning and, kind of what we have discussed today, it really just shows how achievable it is to streamline the onboarding process with something like Apply Easy. It really makes it possible to transform what is traditionally quite a manual, time-consuming process into one that's fast and customer friendly, all while managing risk more effectively, which has probably never been more important. So look, a little bit of food for thought, after exploring what best practice does look like, have a bit of a think about, a couple of areas in your own onboarding process that could benefit from a fresh approach or improvement. At Creditor Watch, we're here to help. With end of year coming up, things tend to quieten down. So it can be a really good time to review and refine some of the processes. We'd really love to learn more about your businesses and explore how we can potentially support. So if you are interested in discussing how Apply Easy can help out, simply let us know in the poll if you'd like us to reach out and contact you. But look, thank you all for joining us today, and we really hope to connect with you all soon.
Thanks, everyone.